Women are fabulous mothers, wives, breadwinners, and religious leaders.
11 minutes just before we get to the top of the hour. Now, when we talk about a mother wound, it refers to the kind of emotional trauma that happens when a child feels emotionally neglected or even rejected by their own mother. Women with mother wounds grow up to have their own children or daughters, and carrying this mother wound can also negatively affect how they relate and treat their own child or children, which is why today we found that it was important that we find out how a mother wound can affect a woman's parenting of their own girl child, and also what could be some good ways to heal and sort of recover from a mother wound. We are joined by Moshitadi Lehlomela. She is a mother wound coach and an author of The Girl Who Survived Her Mother. Moshi, a warm welcome to you. Thank you so much for joining us. And as always, it's an absolute pleasure to have you. How are you feeling this morning?
I'm feeling great. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you on board. Very excited about our chat. I'd love to think that as we grow also as parents into parenthood, it's never the same way that we were raised by our mothers or our parents as to how we are raising our kids. And I just want us to open our conversation by finding out on your end, what could be some of the most common causes of mother wound in women or girl children?
Well, the number one is trauma. It's unaddressed trauma. So a mother was also neglected by their own mother, was abused by their own mother, or perhaps even abandoned by their own mother, and they did not have the resources to address that trauma or to deal with that pain. And because it's so unresolved, they are just going to repeat those cycles of abuse, repeat those cycles of neglect, because it's either all they know or they do not know how to build new habits in regards to, parenting their own child. So that's one, that's trauma. And then we have internalized misogyny, because we know that we live in a patriarchal society where women are often very oppressed in their relationships with men, at work. In many places, women don't find themselves revered as these smart human beings. And when we feel powerless in all these other relationships, it's usually very easy to gain some sense of power in the relationship with your girl child, right? Because you are not taught to center girl children. But this is why also we talk about how mothers tend to baby their sons and are very harsh on their daughters. It is also because of that need for a sense of power in that relationship. But also another thing that is often hard for people to accept is just that sometimes your mom is not a good person. Sometimes a person feeds really horrible habits. They do not allow themselves to learn better ways to relate to other people. And it just becomes part of their character. And that then becomes how they end up parenting you as their daughter.
And also, Moshi, in turn, how does it then commonly affect the relationship between a mother and the daughter as an adult at a later stage?
Well, oftentimes these moms, when you get older, they're like, oh, now it's all over. You're an adult. Let's have a great relationship. And it's often very awkward for the daughters. It's like, wait, you've been abusive all my life. How does this work? Because one, I do not trust you. Two, I do not feel safe in this relationship with you. So oftentimes there's a rupture in that relationship, and it becomes a bit surface level, where they're unable to have a really healthy, nurturing relationship with each other. But there's also this thing of jealousy and competition that happens in the mother-daughter relationship. That's often confusing for daughters, because you don't expect your mom to be jealous of you. You don't expect them to be in competition with you. But that happens, right? But also, there are those relationships where the abuse just continues. And I hear about this a lot since my book came out, where people are like, in my relationship with my mom, I'm an adult, but she's still highly, highly abusive. So there are those relationships where things sort of get better, but you don't know how to navigate the relationship because it didn't start well. And there are those relationships where the mom just is stuck in her own ways and she's continuing to be abusive towards you. So there's so many different experiences that daughters are having in these relationships with their mom.
You mentioned two crucial aspects on what we are chatting about this morning. We can possibly be dealing with one person who is representing their actual character and someone with possible traumas during their childhood. But I also want to understand, how do we then define which is which as far as the wound goes?
You know what? It's not your job. I say this to daughters who come to me and say, I'm trying to understand my mom. Is she just a bad person, or is she because of her own trauma? I'm just trying to understand.
Sure.
And I say, it's not your job. It's their job to do that work of reflecting. That is part of their healing, right? Your healing is having to do with the pain that she has caused you. Fair
enough. And also, what would usually be the signs of an unhealed mother wound that is in adulthood? How are we able to sort of pick it up from our moms?
Yeah, so I categorize it in terms of emotions, and the bigger first one that we often have to focus on is shame. And what shame does, it affects how you see yourself as a human being. So if you're abused as a child, the first thing that you do is think, oh, there's something wrong with me. I mean, they're hitting me because I am a bad person, I'm a burden. It means that they just don't like me. You internalize the abuse as something that is happening because of you. So that causes shame. And that just means that you are ruptured from who you are as a human being. You don't know how to be your authentic self. The way you see yourself is on a negative light. The way you talk to yourself is also going to be very negative because of that trauma that you experience in your relationship with your mom. So that's the first one, that is shame. And we go much deeper into it with the courses that I do. And then we have guilt. And this presents itself, especially in women, as people-pleasing. They don't want to rock the boat. They don't want to make other people feel uncomfortable. They're constantly shrinking themselves, trying to manage other people's emotions. And you see it at work, you see it in relationships, and some mothers even have it in their parenting. I've spoken to a certain mom who said to me, because I've made mistakes in the past, I just let my child speak to me however they want, because I don't trust myself to, know what to do, and I don't want to cause any more harm. Right, so they are paralyzed by that guilt. And it also shows up in the way that other people's moms tend to manipulate them. You have a lot of people that say, my mom just takes and takes and takes from me, and I don't know how to say no, right, because she can guilt trip me. So that is also how the guilt affects you. And then we have fear, we have anger. I am precisely always so interested in talking about anger with women, because, especially black women, because there's this thing where we are shamed out of our anger. And because we're shamed out of our anger, we tend to be very passive in situations that are dangerous for us. And you see it also in the way that women stay in really harmful relationships for a very long time, because we are unable to evoke that anger to say, I do not deserve this.
Moshi, because of time, we're going to need to wrap up very quickly, but I've got a listener who just came through, and I need you to help this particular person. So the listener coming through saying, hi, Matigela, thank you so much for touching on this particular topic today, your mother wound. I'm a victim. It's hard to heal, but my mom is still alive, but she is dead to me. And I want to forget and heal, but it's hard. She has damaged me too much. She left me when I was only 18 months. When she came back, she treated me as an outsider until she said she doesn't love me because she never loved my father. How do I move on from this? And also, how do I heal? Can you help us with that one?
Absolutely. The work then becomes reparenting yourself, because the parenting did not take place. The love that you needed from your mom, it did not happen. You did not get the validation. And we need all of these things from a loving caregiver, so we can see ourselves as worthy of love as adults. So the work now becomes, I need to reparent myself. And the one thing that I usually invite people to do first is to grieve for their inner child. I think oftentimes we sit in that pain because we have not allowed ourselves to release that pain through tears, through many ways that we can emote those emotions. So you need to start grieving for your inner child. The pain that she went through is real. She needs the validation. She needs you to cry on her behalf. And it's usually the hardest part of the healing. But when you are past that, that's a baby, like if you...
So also that means that there isn't any moving from how things stands between her and her mother.
I usually say sometimes, because I get asked this question often, it's like, how do we repair this relationship? And I always use the analogy that if a person is hit by a car, right, and they're injured, we don't say, oh, let's think about that person that injured you and how you can resolve this relationship. We often say, how do we get you to safety? How do we get you to heal? You need to rest. We need to take care of you now. So we need to adopt that with people that are also traumatized.
Okay.
How do we offer them support and healing?
All right. Listen, Moshi, because of time, we're going to have to leave it there. However, I do want a part 2 of this particular conversation where maybe we can delve more into your book titled The Girl Who Survived Her Mother. You will arrange with my producer and then we can have you back so that we explore this topic a little bit more. Thank you so much for your time and please do enjoy the rest of your week. All right. It's 10 o'clock and it's time for your 10 o'clock news update.
This is a Tru FM podcast. Stream us live on www.trufm.co.za. Follow us on all social media platforms at Tru FM or catch us on DSTV channel 816.